Motivation. I'm motivated. But what do you do when motivation is not enough? You rely on your work ethic. You rely on your discipline. That's my mentality. Now let's get it.
To the stage, please welcome Julian Peters.
What's going on, everybody? It's Julian Peters back on my Mentality Podcast. For those watching, how are you doing? And for those listening, welcome back to my voice. I know it's been a minute, but we're back. And today I have special guest, Miss Fit Carly Minton. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Really, really good. Really glad to be here.
So for those listening, Carly got the full Carly get up right now. So you're missing out. Go to YouTube. We got cat ears. We got the Christmas sweater.
Misfit Carl's in her entirety with my cat popping in to say hello.
Hey, how's it going? How's it going? So just to start off the conversation, let's talk about your background a little bit. I know you're a competitor. What got you into that? The whole nine.
Yeah, so background for me, nothing special. Grew up in your typical dysfunctional American family growing up. I grew up in a really small town. There wasn't much going on. So I got into competing really young. I didn't start actually competing until age 16, but I was in the scene and doing all the stuff at 14. And I think because of that has kind of always been this consistent anchor in my life. As I've, grown and gone through life and gone through periods of anxiety and depression through those times. I've dropped out of college twice. I've done the whole fuck my parents thing. I got to go my own way. And then I've worked to repair those relationships. I've had my period of going through 12-step programs and getting sober from drugs and a lot of stuff in my mix, but it's cool because fitness and health has really always been, like I said, that anchor for me in terms of it's always kept me grounded. I kind of stray, but then always come back because I have those core values that I built in me that I started, I think, just because it was such a young age. It's more than just the fitness and the staying in shape and the looking good and competing. For me, it's more so the fact that it really grounds me and gives me a lot of qualities and character traits as a person, I think. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I could say the same thing. I didn't have the really prototypical growing up bad. I was kind of the good kid, growing up, little church boy. I'm a mama's boy through and through. So mom had her hand over me like crazy. And I strayed a little bit once I got into college and got some freedom. But for the most part, I like what you said about I always, no matter what I did, came back to those core values that she instilled in me. Even to this day, I'm 31 years old, you're ready to be 32, and I might mess up, and I can always know that I can rely on talking to her to getting back centered to, stay focused. So I do like that. So with competing, talk a little bit about that. I want to get that out the way. So, I know you've been successful through that. So what are you competing in? What have you competed in? Any future plans? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is my first time on a podcast talking about, I don't know, I feel like I've gone through a lot of growth in the past few months. So talking about this stuff in a new way. Competing for me, again, everything for me comes a lot back to my mental health, because that always has been a really, really big struggle for me. So competing, in a way, was used as a coping mechanism. But at first I saw that as a really bad thing. And then I started to see no, this is something that's helping me progress in life, even though it can be addictive in nature in the way that it's a very demanding sport. It's a really good thing. So competing for me, I find that once I reach a period in my life where I'm okay, things aren't going terrible, but they're not going great, I'm done with this, I'm gonna kick myself back into gear, I would do a show. And not until about my last 2 shows, I actually took a hiatus from bodybuilding between those shows, but not until those shows did I really start to be I actually want to do this for a greater purpose than just random thing I do here and there, and like a lifestyle I choose to live. So now I actually would like to take it to the point of going pro, making it to the Olympia stage. So I'm being a little more intentional and strategic about the way I'm doing things. Fitness is still a very big mental health component in my life, but less of that young kid that was just like doing fitness shows here and there, and more of someone that's really ready to be a serious athlete. So
Right.
not sure I'll be able to step on stage this year because of that, because I don't personally think my physique is competitive to make it to that level just yet, but we're definitely working toward it.
Are we still thinking bikini?
Yeah. My physique, like, unfortunately isn't quite wellness, and to get it to wellness, I've got to do some things I'm not willing to do, and same with figures. So I'm gonna keep it where it's at. I'll stick with the bikini for now.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. So are you doing it yourself, or are you gonna go through a coach? What are you gonna do?
I do have a coach. Yeah, I work with, his name is Kai Daly. Just gotta give him a quick shout out. He's awesome.
For sure.
I have been working with since my last show. Prior to, I was working with Fetty. I also loved Fetty to death. Kai is just local, so really
Okay.
only difference there. But yeah, both of them I've loved working with. Definitely seen a lot of changes in my physique. So right now I'm doing a little off season.
You say local, where are you located?
I'm in Orange County.
Orange County. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fetty's down in San Diego for
Right.
he's not here.
Right. How you like the West Coast? Is that where you always been?
Oh God, I'm so negative. I'm sorry. I hate it so much.
Really?
I've been in California like majority of my life. I was born in Louisiana, born down south.
Okay.
And then we moved to Wyoming for my dad's work, and then came to Bakersfield, which is like the armpit of California. And SoCal was kind of my ticket out of Bakersfield, but I still like snow and trees and seasons, and
Whoa.
I would like to not be. I'm not a beach person. Yeah.
Really? Okay, so I'm probably gonna move out west soon.
Wait, where are you at?
I'm in Missouri.
No way. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're back from Fetty's hometown. I know you.
Yeah, I'm in Missouri. I'm actually originally from Oklahoma. We just moved to Missouri about 4 years ago. Now I'm getting ready to head out west. I'm thinking California or Arizona will probably be my spots, but it's because I love heat.
Oh yeah, okay, that's good for you then.
Yeah, so Oklahoma is like the middle of the world, is what I tell people as far as America goes, and it's like we have the worst winters ever, ice storms, blizzards, and then it turns around and it's like 100 degrees and like crazy humid in the summer.
Oh, so you have extremes on both ends.
On both, and then like we have a tornado season wrapped all in that in May. So every May tornadoes hit. I'm just like, I got to get out of here. So I'd rather have heat. It's interesting that you like the cold. That's crazy to me. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I haven't lived in it since I was a child, so we'll see living in this in adult life. But yeah.
I feel that. No, that's cool. So moving on, wanted to first talk about, I know that you mentioned it, but and I follow you on Instagram. I've always liked your posts. First of all, I think you're hilarious, number one, which is always good. But then, like I said before we got on here, I feel like you're very transparent, you're very real, and that's something that on social media it lacks. Like people just being real about issues. And what I like to call, this is the Mentality Podcast, but I also call it reaching beyond surface level, because a lot of people see surface level Facebook, surface level Instagram, and it's like, I want that. Like, for instance, Fetty, IFBB Pro, men's physique guy. Oh, that's what I want. I'm like, but do you know what he's going through to make himself that? The missing the meals, the not going out, the constant cardio. Like, are you willing to do that to become what you're saying he's goal? So with that being said, addiction. I know that's something that you dealt with. You could be still dealing with, because I don't think addiction ever really just leaves 100%, and you can talk about that. So go ahead and talk about addiction and how you overcome that so far and some of the battles you had with it.
Yeah. So another thing I'm excited to talk about is kind of talking about in a new light as I've gone through my own growth. So for me, I don't know, I was always that kid that like took things a little too far. And it just continued into my adult life, and I got sober really young. I got sober when I was 20, and I was a part of this 12-step programs for about 2 years, and did really, really well stayed clean. And actually, after like a year and 10 months-ish, I left the programs, and I've continued to stay sober, but I've just kind of like sought it out in my own way. Something I've realized for me, like getting sober so young, was that it was, I don't know, I was like diving into this like identity that was almost more suffocating for me than it was like helping me. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to word it. Like I said, haven't talked about it yet in this like mindset, but kind of my addiction journey, I would say in a whole, was that I found for me, like I went from one extreme of like addiction to the other extreme of like making my whole life about my sobriety, to where it like wasn't healthy in that way either. So kind of how I've come to balance that over time is I went from like my life being all about my addiction, right? Like I was all in my party scene all crazy, to then jumping the gun completely. And then it was all about my sobriety. I like left bodybuilding and everything and just really focused on staying sober, which like I said was good. I stayed sober. I did what I needed to do, but then it became like more suffocating for me than it was helping me. So I kind of like left that extreme side of it, and I still stay sober. I still, participate with like those kinds of people and those kinds of practices, I guess I should say. Like I still work on myself in those ways, but it's more something that's now like a pillar of my life instead of my entire life. So yeah.
That's interesting. I
At.
want you to talk a little bit more about that, because I've never heard that before. I've never heard somebody talking about how they were so focused on being sober that it was almost unhealthy for them mentally. So discuss that a little bit more, because I don't think a lot of people have heard that before. That's really interesting.
So I think it definitely is a personal journey. So I'll share only from the experience that is mine. I'm not saying like this is how everyone else should do it or anything, because my partner, for example, he is sober and he does it a completely different way, but that's what works for him, right? So a little bit more of my background. I struggled with bulimia, which again is a very like restrict, not control. I grew up in a family home that was very similar in that way, where there was always this like power struggle of like control and like restriction and stuff. And so I think when it came to the addiction thing, having like a background of like, building my mental state in that way, I don't even know what you would call it, but approaching it in a way of like going either all out or like all in, and like being really restrictive and doing nothing at all kind of thing, or just like having that mindset even really, really wasn't helpful for me. So just kind of taking a step back and saying like, okay, like I don't have to do all of the things, I think I built up enough of a foundation. I think that's really important too. I probably wouldn't suggest someone that's like in the depths of it, very, very new, to just like take it really lightly. Similar to a fitness journey, right? Like when you're losing the first 100 pounds, you have to work a lot harder. But after that, it's kind of less of a prevalent thing in your life. So yeah, maybe that's a good way to put it. I think I got to a point where I'd done all my hard work, and then I was like, okay, let's cool this down a little bit and bring it back to like normal life. And I don't know, now I definitely keep it a more private thing. Like at first I was like promoting it and talking about it all the time. And it's not that I don't want to, it's not that I don't want to now by any means. It's just that, yeah, it's just become a piece of my life instead. So.
Back to what we were talking about. Like I said, I can chop and edit this out, so don't worry about that. And I do apologize. I had to take that call. That one I had to take.
Yeah, I'm getting the job, by the way. That's
Thanks.
awesome.
I appreciate it. I actually, so I moved to Arizona in June. Like I'm gone.
Oh shit.
I signed my lease and everything. I just didn't want to put that on here because I'm afraid my old job might, see this and be like, wait, what? So yeah, but okay. So back to what we were talking about. We were talking about as far as the going too hard for the sobriety, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So my next question is, did you replace your addiction with anything? Because a lot of the people that I've had on this podcast, like I had one young lady, she had a health eating disorder where like she ate too healthy. And she was like I'd never heard of that. If she was so focused on eating that it was almost unhealthy how healthy she was eating. And then I had another young lady, she was addicted to alcohol. So, and they all kind of use bodybuilding to replace that addiction. Is that something you would say you've done, or is it something else that you do, or did you even need to replace the addiction?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. So my answer is a more like meta answer, I would say. So part of like my little phasing out of like 12-step thing is I don't really identify with like addict anymore. I don't really like identifying so much with anything because again, it's that like really strong sense of identifying that I think did get really unhealthy for me. So I think
Right.
that was part of it. But I think it's not so much of like did a single thing replace the addiction, but I think it's like I just have a more addictive energy, you could
Mhm.
say, or a more obsessive type of personality. I do. I have OCD so fucking bad. My house is so clean. But I do. I have a more obsessive personality. I have more that type of mindset. So I started to notice like that energy within me more, and I saw that I was using it for a really bad purpose for some time, and I saw like, okay, this energy isn't going anywhere, right? Matter cannot be created or destroyed. Energy can't be created or destroyed. So I was like, how can I channel this for something that's going to help me instead of something that's going to harm me, something that's
Mhm.
going to support my growth instead of destruct my life and tear it apart. So I would say now, like I use that energy in many areas of my life. So it's not like an individual thing. Like, yeah, you could say like little things for a while, like right after like I picked up puff bars, like smoking nicotine, especially because it was like middle COVID too. I smoked so many of those things. But then I kind of got to a point where I was like, those are just gross. Um, and now it's more like, okay, I'm going to use this energy to get into a really intense workflow.
Okay.
Or, oh, I'm kind of like in this zone these past few weeks. So I'm going to like really hone in on my like fitness and like go ham on like my glute days specifically or something. Like kind of like noticing, yeah, just how to use that energy in my life. And I still notice at times like ways that I'll be using it in things that aren't supporting it. And it's always substances for me, usually like
Okay.
caffeine, nicotine, stuff like that. So I just do my best to be honest with myself and like use the tools still of like 12-step programs. Like they're
Mhm.
great principles and tools, but just in a more leisurely way on my own accord of like, okay, let's get honest with myself right now. Like caffeine has been one lately actually. So this morning I was like, all right, let's do the green tea. It's like a little bit less caffeine. We'll work on weaning off and like do a little. So living my life a lot more consciously and stuff has really, really helped
So
be able to do that.
that's cool. So and then you mentioned substances. So like I don't, obviously we don't have to talk about what you were addicted to, but for instance, let's say if you're addicted to alcohol, do you think that by being addicted to alcohol and then smoking weed, like you're switching like it's possible to switch addictions to that, or are those two different like entities?
I think it depends on the individual and like the approach to their addiction. If you look at it from like a really scientific standpoint, there are more like the addicts that are have it really extreme physically, where like their body is physically addicted to a certain substance and then
Right.
it can't get off that substance kind of thing, versus um, the more mental type where people say it's like a born disease, where I believe more like the energy, like I was saying for myself, is something whereas I think it's going to be there no matter what.
Okay.
Because like I noticed for me for sure, like even like when people would ask me like what was your drug of choice, like there were definitely things I did more than others, but at the same time, like it didn't matter what I did. Like I always went too hard and I always was having to like think about it. And even still, like I was saying with the caffeine, I have to like consciously think about not overdoing it.
Right.
So
I can just imagine. I don't know if you have any aspirations to be a mother, but you're gonna be an extreme one.
I am with my cat. I totally am with my cat. I actually don't want kids. I've
Okay.
tried getting my tubes tied and been denied,
Okay.
but I
Really?
totally am with my cat. I'm too
Really?
young. I'm
Oh, okay. How old are you?
I'm 22.
Oh my God, you are really young. You're almost 10 years
Yes.
younger than me. I would
Yeah.
never have thought that from following you and everything that you're young. That's awesome though. You're very
Thank you.
wise beyond years for sure. I did not know that. So the next thing, I know that you have started to really address mental health. And I really do like that because it's something that I try to address subtly, because I know and you probably don't know a lot about this. I'm sure you do, but don't. But like for Black men, mental health is something that like we don't address. We're like grow up told to be tough, told to be this. And I'm like, it's probably so many men when you're talking about like guys who are struggling with their emotions or criminal activity or stuff. I'm like, it's mental health. It's not addressed in our neighborhoods the way it should be. You're just saying, oh, he's a bad person. Like, no, like you're looking at guys who have been dealing with trauma their whole damn life, from not having dads, not having moms, seeing friends get like, those are things that you don't deal with, and then your mental health is just shot and nobody wants to pay attention to it. So I appreciate you for talking about it. But what got you, before we discuss mental health, what kind of gave you the idea to really start being vocal about it? Because I know it takes some courage to open up and start talking about it.
Yeah. I'm going to start by saying I love your point, and I think that's so awesome that you take a stand to do that, because just even hearing you saying that, I'm like, holy shit, yeah, like people don't talk about that, and it's something that needs to be, like, everyone does. It's not exclusive to like white and male and females
Right.
that struggle with mental health problems, you know what I mean?
Right.
But for me, like, I've talked about it over the years. I've had my page for like 7 years now. I don't know how long you followed me in particular, but I have like brought things up over the years. I've just never like dove in fully. But this year, like every year I'm one of those people that totally does like all the New Year's resolution bullcrap, whatever. But I'm such a disciplined person, like I stick to mine.
Right.
Bodybuilding was one of mine 8 years ago, and I'm still doing it. So anyway, one of those for me this year was like really, really getting clear and putting a lot of the pieces in my life together to, focus on that one thing. Cause like there's a lot of shit that I want to do and that I've been working on. And it's like I've never just focused on that one thing and gone all the way in. And that's really what I decided I wanted to do this year. And for the longest time, I was like, oh, fitness, bodybuilding. And even the beginning of the year, I was like, okay, I'm going to go all in on like competitors and like competing. Like I really love being in that space. And then I did a meditation one day, actually, for like an hour. And I started just like crying. I was bawling. And I was like, what's that one thing, And I was like, that one thing for me is like mental health. Like I've said, even with like fitness, like the anchor that it's always come back to is using that for like mental health purpose. And that's so relatable and something that, is talked about, I think, way more nowadays in general. But there's always that specific way that each individual can speak about it that can speak to someone maybe differently than someone else can, just like you were saying, like your story being able to speak from a Black male's perspective, my ability to be able to speak from my perspective from the things that I've gone through. So yeah. I kind of just decided to really, really hone in on that and go full force.
Yeah, it's crazy. You said about it's starting to become, I don't want to say regular, but it is, as far as people talking about it. Like I'm a big sports guy. Like we had 2 guys in the NBA last year that came forth and talked about them struggling with anxiety. And it was weird to see the reaction where you just realize the miseducation when it comes to mental health, because the first thing everybody that like I know personally was like, they're millionaires. They get paid to play basketball. How would they? And I'm like, that doesn't alleviate you from having a mental health problem. Like, what are you? But it really is just a lack of education. Like, and people don't, again, it's almost like society, especially in the male aspect, it's just like you're soft. That's the first thing you go to. Oh, you're soft.
Honestly, like I struggle with that too. Even.
Right.
I still see people that way. I see myself that way. And it's really, really hard to break out of. Even though nowadays, like it's so much easier to tell yourself, like, that's not true. To actually like break out of that belief is so different.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So as far as mental health, I know the things that you kind of harp on is anxiety and depression. Which is crazy because like a year ago, I dealt with depression. But I did not know I was dealing with depression while I was dealing with depression. It actually took me, like, honestly, this podcast pretty much saved my mental. And I got to shout out my coach, Ryan Hinton. He's been on here too, but he had been like pushing me to start a podcast for like 2 years. And I was terrified and I was fearful and didn't want to do it. But when we moved down here because my wife got accepted in chiropractic school. And like for 2 years, my goal was like just to work, make sure everything's paid so you can go to school, focus on that. But I like lost me. So like I didn't have any goals. Bodybuilding took a back seat. you try to do a prep, but you don't do it because, you know, not, and it was
You
just
get
like,
worse.
it just
So
gets
you
worse.
tried and failed.
Yeah. So it gets
Yeah.
worse. I was in school at the time, and then I dropped out of that program. And it was just like, I don't even know what I want anymore. Like, all the goals that I had were gone. And so every day it was just like waking up, like, okay, I'm gonna go to work. I guess I'll go to the gym. And like, I did not realize, like, I was going through depression. Like, I was literally, nothing made me happy, nothing did anything. The only reason I got out of it was just talking to people, and then realizing, like, whoa, bro. Like, when my coach asked me, what's your purpose? And I couldn't answer, I was like, okay, I'm in trouble. Like, that's when I had, like, that was my reality check. He's like, what do you think your purpose is? Which is crazy because most coaches don't even talk to you about that stuff. So again, shout out to him. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I really don't. And I was like, yo, I'm at a rock bottom point, but I was functioning. Like, I was a functioning depressed person, so to speak. So is that something you deal with? Do you deal with depression? And if so, what caused you to not only, you know, continue to work through depression, because I don't feel like it ever just goes away, and then also speak about it.
Yeah, I like that you said I was in functioning depression, because I do think that there are different levels when it comes to both anxiety and depression. And I've definitely experienced both on different ends of the spectrum. I've had
Right.
times where I've been way more depressed, and times when it's been really minor. And likewise with anxiety, I've had times where I've had like panic attacks multiple times a day, and then times where it's just been like a little nervousness here and there.
Right.
So for me, like, I definitely relate a lot to the high functioning side. And I'm actually coming out with a course in July called Anxious and Ambitious. And I love that title because I feel like it is so relatable in the sense that, like, I am so high functioning, and there are so many people out there that can relate to that, because you can have all this anxiety but still have all this ambition. You kind of get torn, and you're like, do I really have anxiety because I like have all these goals and want to do all these things? Like, am I really that ambitious? Because like, I feel like my anxiety keeps holding me back, and you're like stuck in this crossroads. Same thing with depression. You're like, I want to do all these things, but like, I'm kind of sad and like can't get up some days, but maybe it's just like the struggle of it. And it's, you know, so I can relate to that a lot. I think that would be the majority of where I have stood in my life. And then once I usually get so frustrated in that, that's when it usually will go to like a deeper phase of like depression and or anxiety, before eventually coming back out and like going back through the cycle. But you know, I've got to a point now where the frequency, intensity, and duration is less and more manageable, and it doesn't have that control over me like it used to. You know, now I'm like, okay, I'm in the driver's seat.
Right.
Things are gonna come, but I know what to do in those situations, and I'm like very well equipped at this point.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this. I'm about to flip the script a little bit. You are in a relationship. You have a partner, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How does he deal with that when those type of episodes come? Or how do you deal with that and communicating that to him? Because what I've seen, and I know this from experience, obviously, I did not know how to communicate what I was going through because I was too busy being a man. Got to be a man, got to be strong. And what you don't realize is in certain situations like that, you can actually push your partner further away from you because you're holding on to something and not communicating it. So how do you deal with that in that situation?
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. I think it's definitely different as a woman because it's like almost expected in a way to be
Right.
crazy, which
Right.
I am. So I also would like to say that, like, not to toot my own horn, but just a little bit, I feel as though I have like the most understanding partner in the world, because he works in the counseling space. He's a counselor. He works in the drug addiction space also. So he's like so understanding. He's more the female in the relationship in a way. So
Okay.
when it comes to emotions, like, he's so understanding. How can I be there for you? Oh my gosh.
Right.
However, when he has those times, I'm just like, oh my God. I like to point out that there's a difference between being emotional and being empathetic. I can have my periods of emotion for sure. Manageable though, you know, not like extreme how it used to be, but I am not very empathetic.
Right.
I can be very relatable, but it is still a process for me to feel other people's feelings in the way that they are. I've been working on that with my therapist a lot lately because she was like, "You're very emotionally dead," and I was like, "Okay."
How do you respond to that? Thank you.
Yeah, I was just like, "Okay." I was just like, "Yeah, you're right."
Okay, I got you. I would say that I was gonna say argue, but I would say that I probably am the same way as far as the empathy. And I know I've actually went to counseling. I plan on going back um probably within the next couple months. But I would say that like you don't realize how much your past and what you've grown up through really affects you until you actually sit down and like analyze and reflect. So I think
Yeah,
my lack of empathy is due to a lot of the stuff, not, dad not being there, all that. It was like I had to play tough because I wanted to be strong for mom because I saw mom struggle and do
yeah,
whatever she could to make sure I had it. So I held on to all that. And so the next person, I'm like, well, if I could do it, you could do it. Why are you doing? And it's just not the right way to be. It's a
yeah.
terrible way to
I
be.
definitely get that.
Yeah. So I can
But it,
understand where
it
you say
makes
that.
sense. Because yeah, it's like you were never taught it, you were never showed it, you were never understood. You never understood how to, have that empathy. And I can relate to you in the same way. Like I grew up the exact same. My parents are very like business transactional
Right.
kind of people. And it was very much like a fend for yourself kind of thing growing up.
Right.
So yeah, I was like, I figured it out.
Right.
You can too. Come on.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
So anxiety, being anxious. I didn't I so I still don't 100%. I don't know if anybody does understand what being anxious and going through anxiety is. At the time, being married to my wife, soon to be ex-wife, but being married to my wife, she struggled with anxiety. So you have a situation where you're dealing with a person who is struggling with anxiety and another person who has no idea what that looks like or how to confront it. Again,
Yeah.
that's where the communication comes in because it's like I'm just like problem solve. How do we figure this out? How do we make this better? How do we resolve it? And that's not necessarily the best way to approach some of these situations. And a lot of her anxiety was from trauma, dealing with stuff in the past. So, as far as the communication aspect goes, do you feel like a person struggling with anxiety needs to talk to someone?
I think, yeah, like just talk to someone in general for sure. Um, I think the way that that conversation needs to go is like specific to the individual. Something I found that has helped me a lot with managing it has been just like learning more about myself. So like I have done a shit ton of those personality tests. My favorite are the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram.
Yes.
Because those ones are like the most like studied and there's tons of books on it and stuff. But that actually has been really helpful because like you said, uh being like a problem solver with her anxiety wasn't helpful. For me, that actually is what helps me. Sitting
Okay.
there and like mapping shit out like
Right.
soothes the shit out of my anxiety.
Right.
So I think it's like understanding the type of person you are can help you develop what tools you specifically need to manage your anxiety because there's like the general things of like breathe, take a walk, like whatever, but getting a little bit deeper than that, you can get more specific to like what's going to really help you. But it also takes time to figure that out. So there is some trial and error in there, I think.
Right. Yeah, I can agree because I know, like, for me, like I said, this is really what brought me out of my little funk or like depressed state I was in because it's mine and I like created this. And
Yeah.
every conversation that I have, I'm learning. Like I'm learning from you right now. I had a married couple on. I was learning from them. Every conversation I have, I feel like I leave a better person. And I really needed this, but that might not be the next person's way of getting out of depression. I can say that I did not know that this was going to be the way until it just popped
Yeah.
into me. So it wasn't like a
Yeah.
set guideline. It's just something I walked into. So do you think when people are dealing with depression, what would you advise them as far as, the first initial steps to try and work their way out of that hole that they're in or that mental block that they're in?
Oh, I love this. I've been thinking so much about this because the course I was talking about is like
Mhm.
exactly on this, like
Okay.
getting out of that hole, exactly what to do. So my suggestion on the first few steps would be to work on healing your relationship with your mental health problems or whatever you're dealing with,
Okay.
so that you don't see it as a bad thing and you don't see it in a negative light. Similarly to like addiction, right? If you're constantly looking at addiction as this thing that's like weighing you down, it's not productive. So work on healing that relationship, kind of understanding it better, getting to know that a little bit better. And then from there, getting to know yourself better so that you can understand you can be clear on who you are, what you need. Because like you were saying with getting out of your funk, the podcast really helped you. And that's something that you really thrive in. Whereas someone who maybe is a little more introverted and doesn't like being on camera and stuff, that would be more anxiety provoking for them.
Right.
For me, bodybuilding like really, really helps me. And like mentally, I feel the best when I'm on preps, when I'm even like dieting, like I still mentally feel my best. And that works really well for me. But for someone who maybe doesn't have that like competitive athlete mindset, could be worse for them. So yeah, I think the healing your relationship with the issue and then getting to know yourself better is a really good place to start, so that you can then start to see a little bit more clearly, like, now that I know myself, now that I understand this thing that I'm dealing with, like what are maybe some things I can specifically do or try to address it.
Okay. I got it. Nice. So we're leading into your ultimate guide to success, but I don't want to go there yet. Because I still want to talk a little bit about the mental health. So are you, through your videos, through you being brave enough to start discussing those things, have you seen any impact? Are are people responding well? And if they didn't when you first started this, how did you work yourself through that?
I think I've been very lucky in the sense that I haven't received like much hate.
Okay.
I would say that has to do maybe with the way I present my message, and I still have like a pretty small audience, but I have a very like connected and engaged audience, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I have shared a lot of this stuff over the years, and I do have a lot of people that have followed me for quite a while. So I've always gotten pretty good feedback. A lot of people reaching out, and I don't know, it never gets like old and it never gets like tiring, and it never gets like, you never get used to it when someone messages you and says like, hey, this really helped me in this way. I have a couple people that just like will message me on the regular and like update me on their steps and that they're doing, just because like something that I've said or posted or done has helped them and like continues to help them to this day. So I think it's really cool to see that just from like a podcast I shared one time, where like just the smallest little thing can really make such a big
The
difference.
podcast that you did.
So yeah.
So I agree. It's crazy because I tell people it's something about impact. Like all the views and all the likes is cool. Like y'all can have that. I don't care if my videos don't have millions of likes, but the one or two people that message you and say, hey, this person sharing this really helped me. Like I really needed to hear this. That type of impact lets me know that I'm doing something good. And it can only be one person. So I think that my advice, and even hearing you, having a small audience is not a bad thing when you're impacting people. But I think a
Yeah.
lot of people get lost, or they almost become fearful, and like you can have an impact, but you're so worried about the likes and the follows and stuff that
Because
you're
I think
holding
it's not
yourself
big enough.
back. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did you ever deal with that mindset? Did you ever have to think like, you know what? I don't need to worry about my views. I just need to worry about the people that I'm impacting.
I think actually me transitioning out of like being solely focused on fitness and more to a realm that's like more what am I saying? Life coaching,
Mm-hmm.
success coaching, whatever you want to call it, was kind of a lot of that for me, because fitness, like I do really well in, I thrive in, like I've done it for so long. I compete, I've, kind of have like a really big journey in that. So I think it automatically comes with a little bit more. Like anytime I'm posting about bodybuilding stuff and fitness stuff, I always get way more attention, way more attraction, more people hitting me up. My DMs are flooded more with like coaching and stuff. So not so much that I was like getting lost in the likes and all of that because of it, but I just saw that it was like so easy. I was like, okay, well, it's really easy to continue to build a really successful business in this world because it just keeps coming and I'm really known here. Whereas when I did that meditation and I was like, what's like my real purpose? Like, really, where do I really need to make these shifts right now? It did help me to see more like impact. Like, what's really my story that can help impact people the most? Not the story of Carly becoming a bodybuilder, but the story of the mental health struggles behind that that ultimately led to that, along with X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, that's like a really, really great example of that, like currently in my life.
Right. That's where you're at. So what is the ultimate guide to success?
So the ultimate guide to success is something, it's kind of like a mini version of the course that I'm coming out with, that I've created for someone going through like that place that I've been so many times. And I know because I've had an engaged audience with mental health and fitness related things over the years, other people have told me too, of like being in that place like you were in a year ago, where you're just like so depressed and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And like nothing necessarily happened, but it's just all these things that have led to this point, and now you're here and you don't know what to do. And so it's for the person that's in that place to help them get out of that, start to get clear, and continue to build a path. So it's just the same way I would approach fitness coaching with my clients, where I never just gave someone like a meal plan to lose 10 pounds and then like peace out. It's a guide that will help them get where they need to be in a better place right now, but continue to help them so that I can continue to get those messages of, hey, it's been 5 years and like I'm still using these tools that are continuing to help me to this day. So yeah, that's what it is. I'm really, really excited about it.
So
Getting
that
this really good feedback.
I would call that being an educator,
Yeah.
which is something I'm like really big on, and it's something that's what I went to school for. So that's why I got my master's in is education, and I want to use that on a corporate level one day, possibly, or my biggest goal is to impact children, youth. So like I would love to do that. But one of the things I always tell people is like education just isn't in the classroom, which a lot of people when they hear that think, but also when you're really good at being an educator, it's what you're talking about. So like as a personal trainer, which I've done online training, I've done that. I would tell clients and they would look at me like I'm crazy, but I'm like, my goal is for like 3 to 4 months from now, you not to need me,
Yeah.
because I've taught you so well that you can take every tool that I've given you and use that and not have to continue to pay me. And they would just look at me like, are you crazy? I'm like, no, that's what being a good educator is. So I appreciate you, wanting to set that up, and then like people to use your stuff 5 years from now, where it's just not like a money grab. It's really helping people and educating.
Thank you. Thank you.
So with you talked about the guide to success. So you're getting ready to launch this big thing. So what is that exactly?
So the course is going to be a more comprehensive version of the guide, and it's going to have a little bit more in there. And the over encompassing stuff included is going to be things to improve your mindset, your fitness, and your finances so that you can create a successful future while managing anxiety and depression.
Oh, I
So
like
all the
that.
mindset tools I've used, all the tips on creating a routine for success, a mindset for success, organizing your life for success, how to budget your money and plan financially so that you can be financially free and not constantly worrying about money throughout this journey. And then of course the fitness stuff, because health is important for everyone, but it's more than just like, here, follow this meal plan, here, follow this workout plan. It's like, I'm going to bust all the myths for you so that you know exactly what you need to do and you can create something that works for your lifestyle instead of just following this generic crap that they gave you. So yeah, it is a lot more educational. That's kind of what I realized I wanted to do, because I've done guides in the past of like, oh, like a 6-week guide or whatever. And like, I honestly never felt fulfilled doing it, because like, I knew I was giving people valuable information because I'm putting the best that I can into that. But I was
Right.
like, what's really going to help them is really changing them from the inside out and giving them the tools and, like you said, the education. So
No, that is awesome. It's more, you said the health part, but really that's overall health. That's like life health. Like you said, it's life coaching. The
yeah,
financial part is where I'm like, yo, like you digging even a step deeper. I'm serious. You're taking
yeah,
a step, deeper than most people, because most people it's just the health or the mental. When you tie the money into it, like I know people
that's a
don't want
part
to,
of it.
It's a huge part of it. I
That's a
think
part
a
of
lot of
it.
people
People don't like to
stress.
talk about money.
Yeah. A lot of people stress about it. And you want to talk about anxiety, like not knowing how to manage your money, bills coming, rent coming, like that is something I think a lot of people deal with.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I probably deal with it, hence this background back here a little bit too much. But so I really don't have anything else, but I want to say that I really do appreciate you spending some time with us
Yeah,
and
thank you for
talking
having me
about
on.
this. Do you have anything else that you would like to talk or say? Or
No, I think this is really, really good. You asked a lot of really good questions. I feel as though you're a great podcast host. You ask questions that really allow your speakers to get to share their message in a really, really helpful and insightful way. So I
I
hope that the
appreciate
listeners
that.
will.
I just started this in January, so I am
Oh shit! Wait, January this year?
yeah.
I thought you like had already been doing it for 2 years.
Mm-mm.
You put it off for 2 years.
I put it off for 2 years.
No way. Oh,
Yeah.
you're killing it. You're killing it. I'm
Yeah.
starting one next month, so I might ask you for some tips.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So most definitely. And message me. It really the crazy thing about this is it was really the fear of doing it that stopped me from doing it. This is the most simple and easy process. And I would say you'll be really successful at it because you have big personality and you can
Yeah.
talk. So it's not a problem. But like grabbing equipment, when I first started, I had a little crappy mic that I bought for like $10 on Amazon. I was
Yeah, there we go.
computer web camera, and I'm like, every time something successful happens or I do one, I'll start trying to get better. So then I got a better mic, I got a better web camera, but it really is just doing it. The resources
Yeah.
are there. You don't have to pay anything. It really is just starting it. YouTube is free, guys. Spotify, I can show you the Anchor app. It's free. You just have to have the balls to be able to do it.
Got to put yourself out there.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. And yeah, man, inbox me. I can show you the apps and stuff. It really is easy. And I do think you'll be really good at it. And that'll be a success, especially with talking about, mental health, the fitness, the finances. You had a lot of subjects that you can really discuss. That'll be great.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. So for everybody listening, check the description. I'll have all of Carly's information in there as far as Instagram. You have TikTok, right?
I do. I'm not on it as much, but everyone's telling me I need to be. So stay
Yeah, so
tuned.
we're gonna plug her Instagram, we're gonna plug her TikTok, we'll plug the website for the Ultimate Guide to Success as well. So you can click those links for all you watching. Same thing, check the description on YouTube. You'll have all those links. Carly, again, thank you for doing this. For those listening, my voice is leaving. I know you're sad, but I will be back. For those watching, see y'all later. Thank y'all for joining.